There are trails in America that thousands hike every year. And then there are the ones you're not supposed to find. This story is about a man who did, and what followed him back. My name is Damon West, 32 from Colorado. I've been hiking alone since I was a teenager. Mountains, forests, desert trails, I've walked them all. But nothing prepared me for what I found in the San Juan National Forest in the fall of 2022. It started like any other trip. Packed water, snacks, emergency radio, and my old paper trail map I trusted more than apps. The forest was silent that morning. Too silent. Not a bird, not a squirrel, not even the wind. Just wood settling, and the crunch of leaves under my boots. 3 miles in, everything changed. I found a fork in the trail that didn't exist on the map. Left was the marked trail. Right was a narrow, dark path, half hidden by overgrown brush, as if the forest was trying to swallow it whole. I should have kept walking. Any sane hiker would have. But I'm not always sane. Curiosity wins in the worst moments. So I stepped onto the unmarked path. Immediately, everything felt wrong. The air grew heavy, almost wet, and the silence turned thick, like the forest was holding its breath. The deeper I went, the more I realized something strange. There were prints in the mud ahead of me. Fresh ones. Not hiking boots, not running shoes. Barefoot. Human. Except larger, wider, almost doubled, like a person dragging another set of feet beside them. I turned back. At least I tried to. The trail was gone. Not faded. Gone. Trees stood where the path should have been, roots twisted up from the earth, like the forest had reshaped itself the moment I entered. My chest tightened. Panic set in fast. I forced myself forward, hoping the path curved back. But the deeper I walked, the darker the woods became. Then I heard it. A low whistle. Not a bird call. Not human. Something between the two. It repeated from somewhere in the trees. 3 notes. Paused. 3 notes again. Like a signal. I stopped moving, and the whistle stopped too. That's when I realized whatever made that sound knew exactly where I was. Minutes passed. Sweat stung my eyes. My throat dried up. Then came the laughter. Far away, soft, childlike. A giggle that echoed between the trees. But there were no kids here, not miles into a closed section of forest. I forced myself to keep walking, trying to ignore the sound, but it followed. Behind me, beside me, above me, sometimes giggling, sometimes whispering, like voices learning how to speak by copying what humans sound like. The clearing. After what felt like hours, I stumbled into a clearing and saw a campsite, but it wasn't new and it wasn't abandoned. A tent was slashed open, fabric hanging like old skin, metal pots rusted to a black stain, a hiking pack half buried in dirt. And the strangest thing, a circle of rocks arranged around the fire pit with something carved on every stone. Tall, thin stick figure shapes with wide hands and no faces. I knelt closer, then froze, because on one of the rocks, carved deeper than the rest, was a single sentence: "Don't look up." Every instinct screamed run, but my body acted before my mind. I looked up. There, perched in the trees, were figures. Thin, too thin, limbs long enough to bend around branches like rope, faces smooth like wet clay, but shifting, as if something underneath was trying to take form. Dozens of them, watching silently, until the one closest to me opened its mouth. No teeth, just a wide, dark shape. And then that same whistle. 3 notes.
every figure whistled back. All at once, the sound was so loud I dropped to my knees and covered my ears, but it drilled into my skull. I don't remember running, only branches slapping my face, roots clawing at my ankles, lungs burning raw. All I know is, suddenly, I was back on the real trail. The sun was out, birds chirping, everything normal. Behind me, the woods stood quiet, still, like nothing had happened, except I could still hear the faint echo of that 3-note whistle. The aftermath. I reported it to rangers. They said nobody should have been off marked trails, especially that area, not because it was closed, but because, according to them, there is no trail where I claimed to find one. They searched anyway. 2 days, drone sweeps, nothing. No torn tent, no rusted gear, no rock carvings. But I know what I saw, and I know something else. Since that day, every night around 3 a.m., outside my window, I hear it. That whistle. 3 notes, paused, 3 notes again, like it's letting me know I left the trail, but it never left me.
Some trails seem safe until night falls. And if you ever hear footsteps behind you that don't belong to any hiker, whatever you do, don't turn around. My name is Reese Morgan, 27, from Boise, Idaho. This happened in July 2021 on the Sawtooth Wilderness Loop. It was supposed to be a fun weekend trip. Me, my older brother Nate, and his friend Theo. All 3 of us had hiked for years. We weren't scared of anything. At least, not back then. Day 1. The first day was normal. Blue sky, perfect weather, a clean trail lined with tall pines and wildflowers brushing our legs. We hiked, laughed, took pictures, just 3 idiots thinking the world was harmless. That night, we set up camp by a lake. The water was smooth as glass, so still it reflected the stars perfectly. We cooked ramen, told dumb stories, and crashed in our tent. But around 2:14 a.m., I still remember the time because I checked my watch in panic. I woke up to footsteps, slow ones, heavy ones, crunching in the gravel outside our tent. I thought maybe it was an elk or a bear, but the footsteps stopped right outside the door flap. Silence. Then, breathing. Deep, shaky breaths like someone with lungs full of water. I nudged Nate. He woke up, listened, stiffened. Theo sat up too. None of us moved. None of us spoke. The breathing went on for almost a full minute, and then it took a single step away and walked off slowly. Crunch, 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 until the sound vanished. We barely slept after that, but in the morning, we laughed it off. Probably just a deer, right? Except deer don't walk like that, and they don't breathe like that either. Day 2. The next day, we pushed deeper into the mountains. That's when things got stranger. We kept seeing shapes in the forest, not animals. Tall, thin figures peeking from behind trees whenever we stopped. Every time one of us looked directly, it slipped away, like it melted into bark. We tried to ignore it, pretend we were imagining things, but the feeling of being watched never went away. That night, we didn't camp by the lake or anywhere pretty. We found a clearing and set up fast. We didn't talk much, didn't joke, just ate quietly and retreated into the tent early. And then, in the dark, the footsteps came back. This time, there were 2 sets, then 3, surrounding our tent in a slow circle. Crunch, crunch, crunch. We held our breath. Nate grabbed his knife. Theo clutched the hatchet. I prayed they wouldn't come closer, but they did. The footsteps stopped right behind my head. Through the thin nylon, I felt pressure, like someone placing a hand on the outside of the tent. Fingers slowly dragging down the fabric. 6 feet of dragging. Then another hand from the other side, tracing the outline of our bodies through the nylon. Theo nearly screamed. We didn't unzip the tent, didn't move. Eventually, the pressure disappeared. Then the footsteps continued all around us for hours, until dawn.
Day 3. We packed up fast and hiked non-stop. No breaks, barely talking. We thought if we got back to the main trail, whatever was stalking us would stop. But instead, it got bolder. Around noon, Theo froze mid-step because something stepped in the forest right beside us. Perfect rhythm with our footsteps. Stop. It stopped. Walk. It walked. Like it was mimicking us from 15 yards into the trees. We couldn't see it clearly, just tall shadows and long limbs moving just out of sight. Nate finally snapped. "Hey," he yelled into the trees, "leave us alone." That was a mistake. The footsteps stopped suddenly, then exploded forward like a sprint, branches snapping, bushes exploding outward. We ran. I don't remember choosing to flee. My body just reacted. We crashed through brush, down slopes, tripping, sliding, scraping skin off our palms. Whatever was chasing us moved like it didn't care about terrain, straight through obstacles, never slowing down. At one point, I swear I heard it laugh. A deep, wet, gargling laugh like a person drowning. After miles of running, we stumbled onto a bigger trail, finally, and the sound stopped. Instant silence. Just the wind and our ragged breathing. But we didn't stop moving until we reached the parking lot hours later. The Rangers. We found a ranger station and told them everything. They exchanged looks and asked one question. "Did you see their faces?" We said no. We never turned around inside the tent, never caught a full look. One ranger exhaled in relief. "Good," he said, in the calmest voice imaginable. "People go missing out there because they look. Whatever follows you on that trail, you don't acknowledge it." He told us, unofficially, locals call them walkers. Something older than the park, something that follows hikers who wander too far in. And if you ever turn around and see their faces, you don't walk back out. The aftermath. It's been nearly 3 years. Nate refuses to hike anymore. Theo moved to the city and sleeps with every light on. Me? I'm writing this because I still dream about it. We were lucky, because the thing behind us never got a chance to look us dead in the eyes. But here's what scares me most. Sometimes, when I walk home from work at night on quiet streets, I hear footsteps behind me. Soft, slow, matching mine. And I don't turn around. Because if those same things from the Sawtooths made it out of the woods, I don't want to be the first to see what their faces finally look like.
Sometimes the scariest thing in the forest isn't a monster or a creature or a spirit. It's the thing that used to be human. My name is Hannah Schultz. I grew up in Billings, Montana. This happened in 2020 in the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness. A trail I'd walked a dozen times. Family-friendly, perfect for beginners. That day, I hiked alone. It was supposed to be peaceful. Nature, silence, time to think. But the forest had other plans. The stranger on the trail. About 4 miles in, I saw someone sitting on a log beside the trail. A man, middle-aged, wearing ripped hiking clothes and boots that looked 100 years old. I slowed down and asked if he needed help. He didn't answer. He didn't even look at me, just stared at the ground, arms stiff at his side like he'd forgotten how to move. Something about him felt wrong. Wrong like a broken picture frame where the image is twisted just enough to make your stomach drop. I backed away slowly and continued up the trail, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't really alone. The second sighting. 2 miles later, I heard branches cracking behind me. Slow steps, deliberate. I stopped and waited for the stranger to appear around a bend. No one came. I turned a little, just enough to glance over my shoulder. The trail was empty, but something was moving just beyond it, in the trees. A glimpse of shoulder, dirty skin, and worst of all, the same shredded shirt I'd seen on the log. He had followed me without making a sound, except when I stopped. Then he stopped too. The abandoned cabin. Panic drove me off trail, straight through brush toward a ridge I knew led back to the highway. Instead, I came across something I never knew existed out there. A tiny one-room cabin, half hidden beneath moss and rotting wood. The door hung open like a mouth frozen in a scream. I should have run the other way, but the moment I saw him step out of the trees, twitching, jaw slack, eyes vacant, I had no choice. I sprinted inside and slammed the door. There was no lock, just a rusted nail sticking through the wood. I grabbed it and pinned the door shut with my hand braced against it. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, slowly, scratching, fingers dragging along the cabin walls in long, trembling lines. I held my breath, afraid even air would make noise. The thing at the window. After a minute, the scratching stopped. But that was worse, because silence means something is thinking. My eyes drifted toward the window, a dusty square of glass the size of a dinner plate. And there he was, or what was left of him. He stood with his face pressed against the glass, not angry, not threatening, just staring as if trying to remember how humans work. His eyes were milky, unfocused like a corpse underwater. His jaw hung crooked as if broken long ago. But the worst thing was his skin. It wasn't fresh. It hung loose like his body had shrunk inside it from starvation or decay. He lifted one hand and pressed it to the glass. 5 fingers, long, bony, like they had grown without muscle. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. Then, with a jerk, he smiled. But his mouth didn't smile right. The corners pulled painfully wide, as if invisible hands were stretching his cheeks from behind. I covered my mouth to stop myself from screaming. The escape. He backed away slowly into the trees. I stayed frozen, kneeling behind the door for what felt like hours. Finally, when the sun dipped lower, I forced myself to step outside. The woods were dead quiet. No birds, no bugs, no footsteps. I moved fast, straight down the slope, through branches, scrapes bleeding down my legs, until I reached the road. A car picked me up an hour later. I went home shaking, but alive. Who was he? I told a ranger. They investigated. A week later, I got a call. The rangers said the cabin belonged to a family from the 1950s. They disappeared and were never found. He asked me what the man looked like. I told him everything. The sunken skin, the empty eyes, the impossible smile. The ranger didn't say anything at first. Then he asked quietly, "Did he touch you? Did he speak? Did he try to follow?" I said no. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. "Okay, then you're lucky. Whatever crawled out of those woods, it's not alive anymore, but it's not gone either." He paused before hanging up. "And if you ever see him again, don't let him get close. Things like that don't want help. They want company." The late night return. It's been 3 years. I changed states, changed jobs, changed my number. And yet, 2 nights ago, I woke up because something tapped on my bedroom window. Slow, patient. When I finally found the courage to pull back the curtain, there was no one there. Just a smear on the glass, a handprint, 5 bony fingers pressed from the outside. I don't hike anymore. I don't go into the woods because there's something out there that used to be human, and I think it remembers me. Maybe the forests of America aren't more than trails and trees. Maybe every missing hiker didn't just get lost. Some trails hide more than maps show. Some footsteps follow longer than they should. Some people come back, but not as themselves. So, if you ever hike alone and the woods go silent, don't ignore it. You might not be the only one out there anymore. Subscribe for part 2 if you're brave enough to keep walking.